Tánaiste, for the avoidance of doubt, can I reiterate Fianna Fáil's position that we fully support the rapid rollout of high-speed broadband to the 542,000 homes and farms, schools and business premises dotted throughout rural and semi-rural parts of this country. The Government announcement on broadband within 2 weeks of the local and European election is not a rapid rollout and does not represent a transparent value for money proposition for the taxpayer. It's an attempt by the Taoiseach to portray Fine Gael as the champion of rural dwellers. If anyone had any doubts about the motives and the timing of this announcement, their suspicions were confirmed the following morning, when each member of this House were presented with a glossy pack specific to each constituency, outlining the relevant positive aspects of the announcement to assist Fine Gael on the doorsteps in attempting to convince rural voters over the final days of an election. I would have thought a rather bizarre move when no contract had been signed and we are told by yourselves that that may not happen for a further 6 months. In fact, I think there's real concerns if the contract will ever be signed. At this stage, I assume, Tánaiste, you have realised that this spin just won't wash with those people who have waited patiently for broadband as promised on numerous occasions. The announcement is in fact, I believe, a further betrayal of rural dwellers. Far from a breakthrough, this announcement confirms further delays in broadband delivery on top of the many delays already experienced. Your Fine Gael manifesto promised high-speed broadband to 100% of homes, farms, business premises by 2020. But this week's announcement is a confirmation that this won't happen until 2027, and that's best case. It's more likely to be much longer. Could it be 2030? Could it in fact be 2040? Tánaiste, today's Irish Times carries another leak from a government source that indicates the total cost of the broadband project will be around €5 billion. It's clear that the motivation behind this leak is to imply that Granahan McCourt is investing €2 billion. But any analysis of the redacted memo by Secretary-General Watt would conclude that the actual capital to be invested by Granahan McCourt is much, much less. Can you please confirm that there is no commercial impediment to the publication of this figure, and can you outline to the House what that number is? Over the past number of days, the Taoiseach and a number of ministers have sought to play down the value of the asset at the end of the 25-year period. The assertion is entirely disingenuous in my view, as their comments have concentrated on the value of the physical infrastructure after 25 years. Will you confirm that the real value at the end of the intervention period is the monopoly access to a customer base by your projections of over 400,000 homes and premises, who will have no alternative but to use the infrastructure for which they will pay a monthly fee? Can you also confirm that Granahan McCourt will have their investment paid back after 8 years and will continue to earn very substantial returns over the remaining 17 years, and in the end will own the network and the revenue-generating potential for those 400,000 customers, while the taxpayer will have no stake and will receive no return on the investment?
Deputy, first of all, thanks for raising this question and giving me an opportunity to clarify some of the concerns that you've outlined. The first thing I want to say is that if the government hadn't made the decision that we had made, opposition parties in this House would be attacking us on the basis of delays in decision and a betrayal of rural Ireland. We have made this decision as soon as we could stand over it. Minister Bruton made a recommendation to Cabinet which was accepted after about 4 hours of debate. I wasn't there myself because I was in the UK. But I've certainly had long conversations with both Minister Bruton and the Taoiseach and Minister Donoghue in relation to this issue. And I and the rest of the Cabinet are satisfied that we've made the right decision. And we haven't made it because of local elections being a few weeks away. This is a decision for the next 25 years, for the next 35 years actually, for the country and beyond. It's about future-proofing rural Ireland for the technology change that we know is happening. It's about ensuring that there isn't a digital divide across this country on the basis of where you live or where your address is. We are making the largest capital commitment in terms of investment in rural Ireland since electrification. and I hope we will get support from other parties in our efforts to do that. Of course, opposition parties need to test and hold the government fully to account, and that is why we have released all of the information in relation to the debate that took place within government and within government departments before this decision was made. And the Department of Public Expenditure very robustly has tested this decision. The Department of Communications has very robustly defended that decision and made the case for it, using independent cost-benefit analysis and so on. But the job of government is to make decisions, to explain them, to do it in a transparent manner, to make a decision in the full knowledge of the cost here, which can be up to €3 billion, but may well be a lot less than that when you look at the different scenarios that may unfold, and when you take into account that €3 billion takes account of VAT and of very significant contingency of over £500 million. So this is a significant decision, but it's one that, in my view, will be transformative for rural Ireland in terms of opportunity. And if we didn't make it, would be incredibly restrictive in terms of the availability of what will become essential services through high-speed broadband provision in the future. In relation to what is commercially sensitive and what isn't, the government is not in a position to be able to give a figure on what the bidder is actually putting in terms of equity themselves at this moment in time, because there is still a negotiation to conclude in terms of finalising the contract. But that figure will be published in time, and that figure will be proportionate to the commercial return that is available to the bidder.
Time is up, please.
In the context of the infrastructure that they have an obligation to deliver on.
Deputy Dooley.
Tánaiste, if it wasn't an election stunt, I doubt you would have produced this document in advance of the signing of a contract. And considering that the tendering process is over, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever why you can't publish that number. And as I said, any analysis of the Secretary-General Watt's memo, it's clear that there is a rather small contribution being made by Granahan McCourt in relation to the return. So I'm asking you again to confirm a couple of things which I've asked you to do, which is, namely, that Granahan McCourt will have all their money back after 8 years, that it will have a capacity to earn substantial amounts of money over the further 17 years, and at the end of it, it will own the network and will have all the access to those 400,000 customers and the revenue generation there. And you're not prepared to tell us now what Granahan McCourt are putting up to get all of that money at a future date. I think it's highly disingenuous of you, and I suspect it has more to do with you not wanting to put that information before the electorate in the throes of an election.
Deputy, if the government was in the business of trying to hide information, they wouldn't have published what they published yesterday. We have a minister who will be taking questions after the SUS today for 2 hours on all of these issues. I'm sure he'll be before committee for many hours on this issue, for many months to come, in relation to the finalisation of the contract, which hopefully will happen over the next 6 months. What's being paid for here and what's going to be provided under a regulatory model is a wholesale proposition in terms of infrastructure that many others will be able to use too. And what has been very clear is that without significant state intervention, the market would not and could not have delivered this commercially. And so what we are now doing is the state will be contributing up to half of the cost, probably less than half of the cost of the delivery of this infrastructure, and the numbers bear that out. And that is what we have negotiated over about 800 hours of negotiation with the various bidders at different times during this process. And after all of that, the government has rightly concluded, in my view, that this is the right decision. It does represent value for money, even though it's a significant investment. but the absence of this investment would open up a divide in Ireland that we certainly cannot support.